Today we're going to disassemble, clean, and lubricate a Hi Point Firearms 45 ACP Carbine Model 4595. So what you're going to need for this is the Hi Point tool. You can probably get away without using this. You can probably use some other tools in its place, but this is super handy for this task. Okay, so first, as usual, unload the gun, remove the magazine, lock the slide back, look in the chamber to make sure it's empty, double check with the finger. Close the action, point the gun in a safe direction with the safety off, press the trigger to release the striker. It's easier to take apart with the striker released. Now we want to remove the charging handle. Simply unscrew that with the appropriate tool. Next we want to remove the Forend lock. Pull that Forend off the front. Next we want to remove the two shroud pins right here to remove the shroud. To do that, you want to press on this side, press that, unlock. Same for the other side, unlock. Now you can remove the shroud pins from the other side. And then with the shroud pins removed, we just pull up the front of the shroud and lift it off like that. The next step is to remove this clip down here. All right. Now we can lift the entire firing assembly. Okay, next thing we want to do is remove the front sight. We're just going to pop that off the front. We want to take the barrel frame support right here. This just slides off. Work it back and forth a little bit. Okay, so next, this is the breech bolt retainer clip. So we need to move the clip in this direction so that the retainer lines up with this hole here. Screwdriver, maybe not one this big, and just move it that way like that. Okay, next what we're going to do is the recoil spring in here is under pressure, so you want to wear eye protection and make sure no one is near you because you don't want anything to go launching across the room. Make sure this retaining pin is all the way back. Slide it back about that far, and then slide this up over the top of the barrel, being very careful there's spring pressure, and then gently let it come off the front. Move the barrel so you can pull the recoil spring and the little guide rod piece out here. Okay, now we want to remove the bolt retainer and the firing pin and the firing pin spring and the firing pin striker all right in here. We want to get these things out. So just slide this out the back like that, and then you can allow these things to come out. All right. Okay, now we got everything out of there. Firing pin, there's actually two springs in here as you can see. Okay, now I'm going to get to the trigger control area here. So first we want to pull this out toward you. And that's going to drop down like that. And that's going to allow you to pull this piece out. This cam piece here comes out as well. All right, like that. And then this piece comes up and out just like that. And there's a spring in there. Okay, so now we have the Hi Point 45 ACP Carbine Model 4595 taken apart as far as the manufacturer wants you to take it apart for cleaning. So now we're going to clean this thing up real good. This one's fairly dirty. It's gotten a lot of use, so we've got quite a bit of buildup of carbon all inside here. Basically what we're going to do is clean every piece here. I'm going to use original gun oil, which is a CLP. It's a cleaner, lubricant, and protectant. If I come across any areas that are especially dirty and this doesn't do the trick, I'm going to use some Hoppe's No. 9 solvent. And I'm just going to go through and clean up all these parts. Then we're going to lubricate the gun and put it back together. All right, I'm going to try and keep the assemblies together. So this is the barrel and the fire control assembly right here. So let's go through and get this clean first. I'm going to put a couple of drops of original gun oil. Just kind of coat everything so it gets a little goop on it. That'll start loosening up the dirt, and then when we wipe it down in a few minutes, it'll clean all the dirt off. And this original gun oil is non-toxic, so I'm not using gloves for this. If I move to Hoppe's No. 9 solvent, that's a little bit stronger of a chemical, so I'm going to use gloves for that. So what I love about this gun oil, it's not real harsh. Get a toothbrush, just kind of smear it around here, try and get it in all the little nooks and crannies, and then we're going to come back and wipe it all down. I'm just going to try and get everything nice and clean on this. There's a spring here. I'm not going to mess with that. The manual doesn't get into that, so I'm not going to get into that. All right, let's get some gun oil all over everything. And here, this is your feed ramp. You want to make sure that gets clean. We might hit that with Hoppe's number 9. We have some barrel cleaning to do. Toothbrushes, you're going to need some cotton swabs. You're going to need pipe cleaners if you really want to get this thing good. After it sits for a few minutes, we're going to wipe everything down. When you come across a piece like this, you want to get a pipe cleaner. Put the clean pieces over in a clean area. Let's get this cleaned up. Pretty good. All right, so I'm going to wipe the surface area of this down. This area as good as I can. And then I'm going to use a brush and some swabs to get everything real clean, to get in all the areas that I can't reach with a paper towel. Through there. All right, I'm just going to continue with some cotton swabs. All right, that's pretty good right there. Okay, next we're going to clean the inside of the barrel. This gun is pretty dirty, so we're going to go ahead and use solvent instead of the gun oil. We're going to use Hoppe's number 9. I like to put it in a dispenser here to keep it from getting contaminated. And this dispenser, you just press down on it and it pumps it up to the top for you so you can get it that way. We're going to get a patch. We're going to soak it with Hoppe's number 9 and we're going to push it through the barrel just to soak the inside of the barrel with solvent. Now I have a nice long rod here and it's got a jag on the end for a 45. I'm going to get some patches. These patches are made for this size barrel and bigger. So I'm just going to get it soaked with solvent and we're just going to push it through nice and slow because we want to get lots of solvent on the inside of the barrel to start working. All right, going to leave that on the end, pull that back. So we're actually just going to let that sit for a few minutes and then we're going to push another one through. All right, it's been a couple of minutes. We're going to push another patch through. This is a pretty messy process, but it'll get this barrel nice and clean. All right, man, that is one dirty barrel in there. Make sure you have plenty of paper towels around. Next, we're going to get a bronze or copper brush that is sized for the 45 ACP barrel. Get some solvent on the brush. Just going to run the brush back and forth a few times in and out the barrel. This is going to loosen up any of the dirt that's in there. Now we're going to take the brush off, jag back on. I'm going to take another patch with solvent and we're going to push it through. And this is going to push all the dirt out. Always push it out from the breech to the muzzle end. So it looks like that brush really loosened up a lot of dirt. So we're just going to do this a couple times with solvent. Get through nice and slow to make sure it grabs as much of that as possible. Now we're just going to start pushing dry patches through. Just going to keep pushing them through until the barrel is clean. All right, that is pretty clean. Now that it's clean, we're just going to put a couple of drops of gun oil on a patch. Not a lot. We're just looking to put the slightest coating of oil inside the barrel just to protect it from corrosion. And now just kind of clean up from the solvent. And while we're here, take a patch with some solvent on it and we'll just wipe down the outside of the barrel. Got a little bit of something right here, we'll get that off. Some solvent and some elbow grease is getting that off. All right, that cleaned up pretty good. The barrel, fire control assembly, all good to go here. Okay, so for the breech block, since this one's pretty dirty, we're going to go ahead and use more of the Hoppe's number 9. We're going to use a toothbrush, kind of brush the entire inside of this with solvent. Solvent in there. All right, gonna let that sit for a few minutes and then I'll come back and wipe it down. All right, I'll come back and wipe the majority of the dirt off of here. To try and get some of the nooks and crannies, you can get a patch in there and use the brush to push the patch down into the crevices. Important to get the breech face right down in here. And make sure you get under the extractor. Right, so some of these deeper areas we're going to need to use the cotton swabs. Get in there and get this all nice and clean. Just keep cleaning with the cotton swabs until you're satisfied. Very important to get this entire area here where the firing pin moves back and forth. You do want to clean the breech face where the firing pin pokes through there, that hole. So you definitely want to get a pipe cleaner in there. You want to clean the outside of the breech block. All right, I think this came up real nice. Next, we want to clean all these three little pieces here. Just going to use some of the Hoppy solvent to clean firing pin, striker, clean the bolt retainer, clean up the spring. All right, we'll just let these sit for a few minutes and then we'll come back and wipe them down. Okay, so it's been a few minutes. Wipe all these pieces down. Clean this up with a pipe cleaner. All right, let's get the striker, breech block retainer. You can also use a cotton rag. I just cut up a lot of t-shirts. Still got a few pieces from the disassembly that we can clean. The shroud pins, this clip, the barrel and frame retaining clip. And then we'll be ready to lubricate and put everything back together. We also want to make sure we get the recoil spring, some solvent on a toothbrush from top to bottom, get it all wiped down, maybe a cotton swab down the middle. And as far as the polymer components of the frame and the stock, you can just wipe these down with a rag, maybe some dish detergent. This one isn't too bad. I might give it a quick wipe down. Just going to wipe down the outside of the magazine with some CLP until it's clean, and then clean the follower. I would try and get a little of the lubrication underneath the feed lips a little bit. And that's about it for cleaning the magazine. So now we're going to lubricate the Hi Point 45 ACP Model 4595. The Hi Point manual actually calls for extremely minimal lubrication. It calls for lubricating the outside of the barrel, the inside of the breech bolt, and the outside of the magazine. So we're going to do that. The manual indicates that you should use a CLP, and that's what we have here. It's original gun oil. We're going to just put a few drops on this patch, and we're just going to wipe down on the outside of the barrel. I'm also just going to kind of wipe down all these surfaces to just add a little corrosion resistance of the breech block. So we're going to get all the internal surfaces. And then the outside of the magazine, I'm just going to put one drop on there. All right. Okay, so now we're going to start the reassembly process. We're going to install the firing pin and spring and the retainer into the breech block. So first, we want to roll the firing pin to look for any wobble in the pin. You want to make sure this is not bent. If it is bent at all, you'd want to replace that. All right, so stand the breech block up like this, drop the firing pin right in there like that. Make sure you have both springs in there, the inner spring and the outer spring. Drop that in as well. And then the retainer goes in this way. And now you can set that aside. Okay, so now we're going to put these pieces back together. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put one single drop on a patch of oil, and I'm just going to gently wipe down some of these pieces with the one drop, just to make sure they're not completely dry. Teeny tiny bit of lube goes a long way. All right. Okay, so now we want to put together the frame and the trigger components here. So first we want to take the counterweight and put this together. This goes in like that. Kind of hold this up right down in this slot right here. All right, so that sits down like that. Next we want to take, this is the Sear cam. It's going to sit kind of like that. So we want to slide this in here like so. Push the trigger disconnect down underneath. Should be underneath like that. That should move freely. Alright, and then this, kind of hold this in with your thumb, because now we want to take the little spring, drop the little spring in there, kind of hold this up against the frame piece like this. Make sure this is still underneath. Hold that with your thumb. This goes in this orientation. This is the Sear. That goes down in. Now you want to get a hold of the Sear cam. You want to line up this hole here. So press that down and that should pop right on there like that. Make sure the trigger disconnect is still underneath and moves back and forth like that freely. And make sure that the top, all these pieces are in just like that. Alright, now you can set that down. Make sure nothing moves. Okay, now take the recoil spring and guide rod. Slide that in. Okay, so now we want to put the breech bolt back onto the frame assembly. So one thing I find that is helpful is it's very important that this clip stays in place. So I put a wire tie through the hole there, and what that does is it keeps this clip from moving on you. So the circle in the clip needs to be lined up with the hole in the frame just like that. It's going to make it a little bit easier as you are going to be holding like 3 things at once. You want to feed this through here like this. I'm going to keep it at an angle. Keep an eye on this recoil spring so it doesn't bend downward and it doesn't come out between here. So you want to keep this up tight against the barrel like that. And what I do is kind of push it along with my thumb like that, so it kind of ends up in this position. Once it's past here, you're going to grab this to keep it from sliding back. So we want to bring this back. What you want to be very careful of is the firing pin in there. If that firing pin is poking out, you need to make sure you bring this back far enough so that when you move it down, you don't bend that firing pin. So bring it all the way back, so there's a gap here. Slide it down right into that hole, and now you can gently release the tension on the spring until it closes up like that. Now that you're good there, making sure that this retaining pin came through the hole, and then now you can remove the wire tie, and we want to push this pin all the way back. You might need to tap it with a little hammer like that, and that's how that should look. This is the frame support. Slide this onto the barrel. That's just like that. Make sure that this piece is sticking up and is locked in place by this retainer. Make sure it's not underneath, so it has to look just like that, right? And that's to keep these 2 pieces from coming apart. Next, we're going to take the stock. We're going to drop the firing assembly into the stock, holding it together, turn it upside down, get this clip this way with the little lip facing up like that. Take something plastic, not going to damage anything, and use that to push that into place like that. Okay. All right, next we're going to put the receiver shroud back on. Now we didn't really clean this in the video, so now might be a good time just to wipe it down. Going to go on like this, making sure that this tab goes underneath. Going to go like that. And make sure these clips are rotated clockwise. So you have a clear hole to put the pins through. Take your 2 shroud pins and push them through this side. Put pressure on it from the other side to have it stick out as far as possible. And then using the tool, and go counterclockwise, lock it in place just like that. The same on the front clip. Push it through. Okay. Next we're going to put the Forend cover back on. And then bring this clip down to lock it in place. All right, next you want to get your 5/64 Allen key and replace the front sight, and you're going to want to kind of line that up with the rear sight, and you're going to want to take it to the range to make sure front sight is aligned. Now I'm going to put the charging handle back in place, screw that in, get it nice and snug with your tool. Alright, so now your Hi Point carbine is now completely reassembled, and very important at this point to do a quick function check, which we're going to go through really quick here, and I'll make another video just with a function check. Okay, now we're going to do the safety and function check on the Hi Point 45 ACP Carbine Model 4595. First thing we want to do is, even though we just put this back together, always double check. No magazine in the gun and no round in the chamber. And make sure the magazine you're working with has no ammunition in it. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is insert an unloaded magazine into the carbine and make sure it locks in place securely. Now with the thumb safety down in the fire position, pull the charging handle all the way back. It should lock in place because we have an empty magazine in there. Remove the magazine. Make sure it comes out nice and easy, like that one did. Now finger off trigger. You want to pull the charging handle all the way back and let go. Make sure the bolt closes all the way on its own. Now with finger off the trigger, move the bolt back and forth. Make sure it's nice and smooth, and then make sure you can lock it in place manually by pressing the roller into the hole at the back. Now we want to pull the roller out and make sure the bolt closes on its own. Okay, next, put the safety in the safe position with the gun pointed in a safe direction. Attempt to press the trigger. The striker should not be released. Insert an unloaded magazine. Make sure it's secure with the safety up, pointed in a safe direction. Make sure the striker is not released when you press the trigger. Last but not least, put the safety in the fire position with the gun pointed in a safe direction. Press the trigger and it should release the striker. Alright, and that is the quick safety and function check. If you found this video helpful, please hit like below and please subscribe. And thank you for watching.